Chosen one, this moment was not random. You didn't scroll into this message by accident. Something beyond algorithms, beyond time, beyond logic leaned into your life and whispered, now. Heaven has been watching you longer than you realize. And right now the veil is thin. The silence you've been living in, it was never abandonment. It was preparation. There have been nights when your strength collapsed quietly. Smiles held together what was breaking underneath. You asked questions no one heard. You prayed prayers that felt like they dissolved into the ceiling. And yet here you are, still standing, still breathing, still searching. That alone tells a story. Chosen one, the battles you survived without applause were not invisible to heaven. The confusion, the delays, the unanswered moments, they were all being investigated in the unseen realm. This message is finding you because something is shifting. The pressure you felt was not meant to crush you, it was meant to mark you. You have been walking through shadow while carrying light you didn't even know you had. Every tear you tried to hide became a signal. Every breakdown became a record. Heaven does not overlook pain, it archives it. And the response you've been waiting for has already been authorized. And chosen one, before we go deeper, pause for a moment, hit subscribe, and comment, I received this, if your spirit's already responding. Because this message is not entertainment, it's alignment. This is a spiritual step, a quiet agreement that you're ready to hear what has been unfolding behind the scenes. There is a reason this resonates instead of repels. A reason your heart feels exposed but safe at the same time. Recognition always comes before revelation. What you sensed was real. What you endured was not wasted. Heaven has been arranging timing with precision, waiting until your spirit was strong enough to carry what's next without breaking. Chosen one, your prayers didn't disappear into silence. Heaven recorded every tear, and now the response has been released, quietly but powerfully. Something hidden is about to be revealed. Something long delayed is about to make sense. Stay with me, because what you're about to hear was not meant for everyone. It was meant for you. Chosen one, there is something sacred about the tears you never explained. Before you ever found the right words, before you could even understand what you were feeling, heaven was already listening. God does not wait for perfect sentences. He does not require polished prayers. He listens to the language beneath language, the trembling of your heart, the ache behind your silence, the tears that fell when you were too tired to speak. Long before your mouth opened, your spirit had already been heard. Think about those moments when words failed you, when your chest felt heavy, when breathing itself felt like effort, when all you could do was stare into the quiet and let the tears come. Did you notice how those tears carried more truth than any speech ever could? That is because the tears are not weakness. They are evidence. They are the soul's most honest confession. In Chosen One, God understands that language fluently. Every tear carried the weight of your endurance, your faith, and your unspoken hope. You may have wondered, why couldn't I explain this pain? Why did I feel misunderstood even by myself? It's because some experiences are too deep for words. And God knew that. That's why He listened when you cried alone. When you wiped your face quickly so no one would ask questions. When you whispered prayers that broke apart mid-sentence. Nothing you released in secret was overlooked. Nothing was misread. Heaven does not misinterpret tears. They are received with precision and care. There were sighs you thought meant nothing. Exhausted breaths you released after holding everything together for too long. Moments when you felt empty rather than emotional. But even those were messages. Even that quiet was communication. God heard the fatigue behind your strength and the faith hidden inside your confusion. He heard the part of you that kept going when you didn't know why you still were. Ask yourself this gently. What if the reason your prayers felt unfinished is because God already understood the ending? What if the reason you couldn't explain your pain is because heaven didn't need an explanation? Chosen one, your tears reached places your voice could not. They crossed boundaries words never could. They arrived pure, unfiltered, and honest. And here is the truth meant to calm your spirit. Nothing you cried out in the dark was wasted. Nothing fell into silence. Your tears did not disappear. They testified. They spoke of your perseverance. They spoke of your calling. They spoke of a heart that refused to harden even when life tried to break it. Can you feel that quiet reassurance rising now? That sense that you were never ignored, only understood at a deeper level? Stay with this feeling. Let it settle. Because this is where healing begins. When you realize that heaven heard you long before you found the words. Chosen one, there was a season when time felt frozen. Days passed, but nothing seemed to move. You woke up, did what you had to do, went to sleep, and repeated the same cycle, wondering silently if heaven had forgotten your address. Prayers felt unanswered, signs felt absent, and the waiting began to feel heavier than the pain itself. But what if the stillness you experienced was not emptiness, but intention? While you thought nothing was changing, heaven was working in ways too precise to be rushed and too sacred to be noisy. God often does his deepest work in silence, not because he is distant, but because alignment requires focus. Just like roots grow underground before a tree ever rises above the soil, your life was being strengthened where no one could see. You weren't stuck, you were being stabilized. Think about it. If everything had shifted when you first asked, would your heart have been ready to hold it? Would your spirit have known how to protect it? Heaven was not delaying to test your patience. It was arranging circumstances, removing unseen obstacles, and adjusting timing so that when change arrived, it would not overwhelm you. What felt like repetition was actually refinement. There were connections being repositioned, outcomes being redirected, and doors being quietly closed for your protection. Even the moments that felt like setbacks were serving a purpose. Heaven was filtering what could come with you into the next season and what could not. Some things had to fall away without explanation. Some people had to exit without closure, not as punishment, but as preparation. Ask yourself this gently. What if the reason you felt restless was because something new was forming beneath the surface? What if the boredom, the silence, the lack of clarity were signs that heaven was asking you to slow down so your spirit could catch up to what was coming? God was not ignoring your urgency, he was honoring your future. During that waiting season, your faith was being strengthened without you even realizing it. You learned how to survive without constant reassurance. You learned how to trust without evidence. You learned how to keep going when motivation faded. Those lessons were not random, they were required. Heaven was shaping you into someone who could carry blessings without losing balance. And here is the quiet truth meant to bring you peace. Nothing about that season was wasted. Every slow day, every unanswered prayer, every moment you questioned yourself, it all served a purpose. Divine alignment does not announce itself. It forms gently, patiently, lovingly, until the timing is exact. So if you're still in that space where things feel unchanged, ask yourself this. What if heaven is closer than you think? What if the very stillness you're in is proof that something powerful is almost ready? Chosen one, while you thought nothing was happening, everything was being arranged. Chosen one, there was a moment you did not witness with your eyes, but it happened all the same. While you were simply trying to survive, while you were managing your days and carrying pain quietly, something profound took place beyond the physical world. Your suffering did not remain suffering. It crossed a threshold. It entered the unseen realm, and there it was transformed. This is how heaven works. God does not allow pain to exist without purpose. At a certain point, your endurance reached a weight that could not be ignored. Not because you complained loudly, not because you demanded answers, but because you remained standing even when everything inside you felt uncertain. That quiet faith triggered an exchange. What you lost was not erased, it was repurposed. What wounded you was not wasted, it was reassigned. In that unseen moment, loss became protection. The things that slipped away were not failures, they were shields. Heaven removed what could have harmed you later, even if it hurt to let go at the time. Confusion was not a sign of being lost. It was the space where clarity was forming. God often removes understanding before he installs wisdom, because wisdom lasts longer. And every tear you released, those tears did not just fall, they testified. They carried authority because they were paid for with perseverance. Ask yourself this softly. What if the reason you feel different now is because something changed without asking for your permission? What if the heaviness lifted just enough for you to breathe again? Because heaven intervened quietly. The most powerful spiritual transactions are rarely dramatic. They are deliberate. They happen without noise, without announcement, without applause. But they echo into eternity. You were not just enduring, you were being entrusted. Authority is not given to the loudest voice. It is given to the most faithful heart. Every time you chose not to harden, not to give up, not to lose your compassion, you are being prepared for influence you may not yet recognize. Heaven does not elevate wounds, it redeems them. There was also a shift in how you were seen in the spiritual realm. You were marked not by what broke you, but by what didn't. The very things that tried to take you out became proof that you could carry more light than darkness expected. That is why certain attacks stopped suddenly. That is why some battles ended without explanation. The exchange had already taken place. Can you sense it now? That subtle strength you didn't always have before? That calm awareness that you survived something deeper than words? That is not coincidence. That is residue from the unseen work God completed on your behalf. You may not remember the exact moment it happened, but your spirit does. Chosen one, your suffering did not disqualify you, it authorized you. What was taken was replaced. What was lost was covered. What was confusing was clarified, not loudly, not suddenly, but eternally. And now you are walking forward carrying something invisible, yet powerful. Chosen one, there was a moment when you did everything you knew to do. You prayed sincerely. You meant every word. You waited with expectation. And still, relief didn't come when you thought it would. That delay began to feel personal. It made you question your timing, your faith, even your worth. But what if the pause you interpreted as silence was actually protection wrapping itself around you? God's delays are not empty spaces. They are carefully measured moments. When relief didn't arrive immediately, it wasn't because heaven hesitated. It was because heaven was being gentle. There are answers that feel good in the moment, but harm us long term. There are breakthroughs that excite the heart, but overwhelm the spirit if they arrive too early. God sees what you cannot yet see, and He loves you enough not to rush you into something you weren't fully ready to carry. Think back to who you were when you first prayed that prayer. Your heart was fragile. Your strength was limited. Your hope was still rebuilding. If relief had come then, would it have healed you? Or would it have shattered you under pressure you didn't yet have the capacity to manage? Timing is mercy when it prevents collapse. Timing is love when it allows growth before reward. The delay also gave you something invaluable. Roots. In the waiting, you learned how to breathe without constant reassurance. You learned how to trust without proof. You learned how to stand without applause. Those lessons weren't side effects of delay. They were the purpose of it. God was strengthening you quietly so that when relief finally arrived, it wouldn't slip through your fingers or become something you feared losing. Ask yourself this with compassion. What if the version of you that prayed wasn't yet the version of you that could sustain the answer? What if God was not withholding, but preparing you to receive without anxiety, without dependence, without breaking under the weight of answered prayers? Sometimes God answers by slowing things down so your spirit can catch up to your destiny. There is also something sacred about not rushing healing. Quick relief can numb pain, but slow restoration heals it. God didn't want to just stop your tears. He wanted to strengthen the place they came from. He wanted your peace to be rooted, not temporary. That takes time. That takes patience. That takes care. And here's the truth that changes everything. The delay didn't mean God forgot. It meant He remembered every detail. He remembered how much you had already carried. He remembered what almost broke you. He remembered what you were still recovering from. So He protected you from receiving too much. Too soon? Can you feel that now? The understanding replacing frustration? The peace replacing self-blame? Chosen one, the relief you're stepping into now will feel different because you are different. You're steadier. You're wiser. You're stronger. The delay wasn't denial. It was mercy in disguise. And as you move forward, hold this close to your heart. God's timing never arrives late, and it never arrives careless. It arrives exactly when you are ready to receive it, without losing yourself. Chosen one, when heaven begins to move, it rarely announces itself with noise. There is no sudden trumpet, no dramatic interruption of your life. Change begins softly, almost respectfully, as if God does not want to startle your healing. That's why the first sign you'll notice is not the answer you asked for, but the peace you didn't expect. A calm that doesn't make sense yet. A quiet settling in your chest where anxiety used to live. Before circumstances shift, your spirit does. You may wake up one day and realize the heaviness feels lighter. The same situation is still there, but it no longer controls your breathing. The same question remains unanswered, but it no longer consumes your thoughts. This is not denial. This is alignment. Heaven always restores peace before it reveals plans, because peace prepares you to receive truth without fear. Have you noticed moments lately where you felt okay without knowing why? Then comes clarity. Not full direction, not detailed steps, just a gentle knowing. A sense that you don't need to force anything anymore. The urgency fades. The need to chase answers loosens its grip. You begin to trust the unfolding instead of fighting it. This clarity doesn't shout. It whispers. It doesn't push. It reassures. God gives insight in portions because too much visibility too soon can overwhelm a sensitive heart. Strength follows next, but not the loud kind, not adrenaline, not survival mode. This is quiet strength, the ability to show up without draining yourself, to say no without guilt, to rest without explaining. You begin to feel capable again, not because life got easier, but because something inside you stabilized. That strength is heaven's confirmation that the response has already begun. Would God strengthen you for nothing, or is He preparing you for what's coming? Chosen one, pay attention to the small shifts, the urge to react less, the desire to protect your peace, the sudden disinterest in chaos that once pulled you in. These are not personality changes. They are spiritual signals. When heaven moves, it first changes your internal environment, so external blessings don't disrupt you. God restores your center before He expands your territory. You might be tempted to dismiss these signs because they feel subtle, but subtle does not mean insignificant. Dawn doesn't explode into the sky. It arrives gradually, yet it changes everything. The fact that you can breathe again, that you can hope again, that you can imagine a future without fear, that is evidence. Heaven is already at work. Ask yourself this gently. What has shifted inside me recently that I didn't force? What peace showed up without explanation? What clarity arrived without effort? Those are not coincidences. Those are confirmations. God always lets you feel the answer before you see it. Chosen one, don't rush this stage. Don't overlook it. This is the holy pause where alignment locks in. The storm hasn't fully passed yet, but the wind has changed direction, and that means something new is on the way. Stay aware. Stay grounded, because the first sign has already appeared, and it's telling you that heaven's response is no longer coming. It has begun. Chosen one, notice this carefully. Hope did not rush back into your life. It didn't arrive with noise or demand your attention. It returned the way healing always does, quietly, respectfully, without forcing its way into spaces that were still tender. One day you realized you were breathing a little deeper. Another day you caught yourself imagining tomorrow without immediately feeling tired. That wasn't coincidence. That was restoration happening at the speed of trust. Hope is not something God shoves into wounded hands. He waits until your grip softens. He waits until fear loosens its hold. And then, almost unnoticed, hope begins to settle in. Not as pressure, but as presence. You didn't have to convince yourself to believe again. You didn't have to repeat affirmations through clenched teeth. Faith simply reawakened because alignment replaced struggle. When resistance fades, hope has room to return. Think about how different this feels from before. Earlier, hope felt fragile, like something you had to defend or constantly explain. Now it feels calmer, steadier, less desperate. That's because this time, hope isn't built on outcomes. It's built on peace. You're no longer hoping just to escape pain. You're hoping because your spirit remembers safety. Isn't that a gentler way to believe? Chosen one, God restores hope by restoring your nervous system first. He soothes the part of you that stayed on high alert for too long. He teaches your body that it doesn't have to brace for impact anymore. That's why you're beginning to rest without guilt. That's why silence feels less threatening. That's why joy doesn't feel dangerous anymore. Hope returns when fear no longer dominates the room. You may notice that you're not forcing clarity, not chasing signs, not begging for reassurance the way you once did. And that's okay. That's healthy. God doesn't need you frantic to prove your faith. He wants you grounded. He wants you present. Because faith that survives without pressure lasts longer. Ask yourself this: when was the last time you felt calm without a reason? That calm is not emptiness. It's trust taking root. There is something holy about the way you're beginning to breathe again. Slower, deeper, without apology. You're learning that peace doesn't mean everything is finished. It means everything is held. And when you feel held, hope no longer has to shout to be real. It simply exists, steady and warm, reminding you that you're not walking alone. Chosen one, this is how God heals, without force, without fear, without urgency. He restores hope by reminding you that you are safe to hope again, that your heart won't be punished for believing, that disappointment is no longer waiting around every corner. Alignment has replaced struggle, and faith has found its way home. So let yourself receive this gently. You don't have to try harder. You don't have to figure everything out. Hope is already here, sitting quietly beside you, asking only one thing. Will you let yourself trust that this peace is real? Because this time, chosen one, you're not surviving anymore, you're breathing. And that's how new beginnings begin.